I'm good. I'm so good. I'm so, so good. I am so jazzed to be having this conversation today with you. It's been a while. We've been talking about this for a while. And I will tell you, when I started this pod um, back this spring, you were like on the top of the list of people that I wanted to have a conversation with. So the fact that we're doing this now is wonderful.
So fun. And I was looking back, it was like 2 or 3 years that you did your first session. And so
Yeah.
that's the synchronicity of meeting people and it coming back and flowing, I think is so special. So that's fun.
Yeah, I know it has been. It's been years. And so I want to give a little, so I'm going to give a little context about how we know each other. But, for anybody who's not familiar with me or is maybe new to my page, so a little introduction. So my name is Sarah Morgando. So I am a RN nurse coach and life alignment coach. And I have had the privilege and honor of having so many wonderful conversations with many, many different people that have such unique gifts and skill sets and offerings. And Jen was so gracious to meet with me in this episode to talk about the work that you do. And I'm going to turn over to you in just a second, Jen, but I do want to give a little background how we know each other. It's going to be the context is going to be a little bit more extended, so stay with me because it does relate. It's relevant. So you and I, like you said, we met about 2 or 3 years ago, and just to put it into perspective, so I was at a silent auction and I was bidding on several things that I wanted. And one of the things that I bid on was this gift card to Clear Holistic Therapies, where for anybody who doesn't know is where Jen practices, one of the places she practices. And I got outbid on everything. And I was starting to get outbid on this gift card, but I kept fighting for this gift card.
Yeah.
Anyways, I won it. And for some reason, I just needed to have this gift card. And so I won it and I went on and I kept coming back to your profile. And I was like, gosh, I feel like I need to see her. So fast forward, I scheduled the appointment and I went in thinking I was going to be having just sort of a basic massage. That's what I had signed up for. Well, I'm going to keep it abbreviated, but what it was so much more than that. I had this amazing experience with you, and you had shared with me that you had these psychic gifts, and I was like, okay, and whatever comes through is going to come through, and it did, and it was an amazing experience, and I left there just absolutely in awe, and I referenced back to that appointment so many times, and I've talked with people about it, and I'm like, I can't explain it. Like, you just have to experience it. I can't explain it. And so you and I reconnected last year, and again earlier this year, and I'm just so happy that we're here. We've arrived here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think first and foremost, I want to just celebrate us being in our power and doing the things that speak and spark us, because I think you can feel it. I mean, when I tune in or tap into you, you glow when you're doing this, you light up. And so I just think it's so fun that you're doing this and holding space for people and getting people together. And we're having conversations that allow us to tap into the holistic health field and do it in a way that's not taboo or
Yeah.
kind of like alternative medicine. This is the real medicine. We're all just remembering this or relearning it. So
Yeah.
I'm celebrating us today.
I'm celebrating us today too. Yes, thank you for saying that. Yes, it's so much to celebrate. And I want to turn it over to you. So a little bit about, if you kind of just tell us your story and, ultimately how you arrived doing this work.
Okay, so I grew up intuitive. I think many of us who are tuning in, or many of us who might watch this at a different time in a different now moment, have probably experienced a strong sense of knowing things or sensing things or being extremely, extremely sensitive or emotional.
Yeah.
Probably people will know someone who is an empath or a highly sensitive person, and sensitive being an okay thing. I
Mhm.
think over time, women have been told that they're sensitive or hysterical, and it's gotten a bad rap. But essentially, being sensitive or being a highly sensitive person to me means just having extra awareness
Mhm.
or feeling the range of human emotions very strongly. So I felt that as a child. I've always been an empathetic person. I have a lot of empathy. I feel shifts in the earth. I feel, if you know, if it was rainy or cold outside, I would feel that very deeply. Or
Mhm.
if, you know, I had to be watched by a babysitter, I would unknowingly feel the different room or the different energy. And so,
Mhm.
probably for the first half of my life, up until the age of about 24, I didn't really know that this was a thing. I thought it was one normal, and I thought I was just extremely sensitive, or, you know, I don't know. It just kind of was natural to me. I didn't know any different because
Yeah.
at that time, I think in, you know, the 90s and early 2000s, is this really wasn't something that was common, or it was still labeled as against God, or it just wasn't as widely popular. There were
Yeah.
many people who were experiencing these things, but it wasn't talked about.
Yeah. More
And
controversial. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, or frankly, against God or religious beliefs. It was scary. You were a witch, or you were going, you know,
Yeah.
going to hell if you felt an energy from a crystal or a plant. It just wasn't talked about, at least not in my circles. So, um, that was kind of the transition that I experienced. And, you know, my dad died when I was 24, and that was kind of the catalyst to my awakening, where, um, we had to shed all of the beliefs that we had in the beginning. Everything we thought we knew, the structures, you have to go to school, play sports, do this, do that, go to church every, you know, do
Mhm.
this. Um, it started to just unravel. And
Mhm.
in that, I was able to really tap into my inner knowingness and start to think and feel for myself and really start to unravel and say, huh, is it okay if I can sense an energy from a crystal in my hand? Like, am I going to hell, or is that okay?
Yeah.
And so I started to just kind of do research. And of course, you know, my mom and sister and brother have also gifts too. And so they were also dabbling, and kind of, we were figuring out what life is like without my
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
So it took a few years. It took, I would say, a good 5 or 6 years to really start to be like, huh, okay. At that time, I was working in television news, and I was doing everything by the book. I was in college, journalism, communications, worked in TV news. And then around the time I was 27, 28, I needed to get out of TV news. I was scattered.
Yeah.
I was so busy and so overworked, underpaid, all the things that we've all
Yeah.
probably experienced this time.
Yes.
And the decision was, it had never been more clear. It's like, you can exit this career path. You need to find a different way.
Yeah.
At that time, I had been undergoing or experiencing Reiki,
Mm.
learning, you know, Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and just kind of like, oh, there's modalities that you can, you know, I was needing to learn, and beginning to really like kind of play with
Yeah.
energy, and it was coming so naturally to me. And so, at this point, you know, my family was moving across country, and so I was going to be the only one living in the state that I'm in. I'm in Minnesota right now, and I decided to go back to school, and I took a 2-year program for massage therapy, and it was an East-West program. So we learned a lot of modalities, Eastern and Western modalities, and bachelor's of science. So, or 2-year degree. What is that one? Associates?
Associates. Yeah.
Not a bachelor's, an associate's degree, right? Shout out schooling and credentials. But
Yeah.
throughout that process, it was me learning and healing myself,
Yeah.
and also learning, oh my goodness, this energy, this unseen field that we all carry is tangible. And I started to learn the organs and how they speak, and learn the body, and learn the mind body spirit connection. And with that comes crying, shedding beliefs. I mean, really flipping your life upside down. I think anybody who's done healing work knows it's not just this light and love, new age, blissful experience. I mean, you really have to lay in bed and cry
Yeah.
and rip out your hair and get into arguments with people and shed
Yeah. Yeah. Do the work.
for the euphoric stuff to come through. So I went back to school. I learned the school, the textbook stuff. And then after that, my psychic intuitive gifts really started to come through.
Mm.
At that point, maybe 2 years after school, my psychic awareness, so psychic being, well, we'll talk about that. I'm
Yeah.
just going to let that be. We'll talk
Yeah.
about what a psychic is, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the empathing and the sensitivities, I was so overwhelmed. I was beginning to channel. I was channeling at inappropriate times. I was sharing things that I was receiving um, to people when they weren't asking for it. It was just overwhelming for me to
Yeah.
receive so much information from the unseen that I needed to get a grip on my gifts. I mean, at one point I remember I was at a Twins game. I didn't want to be there because in that space it was uh it's so overwhelming to me, the sporting event and the people and the people. And so I
Yeah.
think I had maybe a double wine because I was trying at that point to like find comfort with
Yeah.
myself. So I
Yeah.
started drinking, and then I started channeling at the Twins game. And my husband, it was not a good, it was not a good look. It was me low key being belligerent and me channeling. And my husband was like, "We're getting out of here. You are inappropriate. You need to get a grip on your gifts." And so
Mhm. Yeah.
at that point, I was like, "But I wanted to be doing that." But so that's an example of I needed to find someone to teach me how to integrate what was coming through.
Right.
So I was guided to the island of Kauai, where I met a woman, Elle Harrington, who does soul retrieval. And so she's who I learned it from. And in my experiences with tapping in, and she and I have a soul contract to bring this to the earth. She's made it her life's mission to come up with this way of doing something to help people in the awakening process. And so I learned how to hone my gifts through one, connecting to my own soul energy and then retrieving its missing pieces. So I did my soul retrieval, and that took me about a year to integrate. Kind of starting as like a new operating system and a new energy way of sensing. And then I went back to the island and learned from her how to facilitate this process.
Wow.
And so after that, now it continues to come online. Do you know what I mean by
Yeah.
that? Like
Yeah.
the knowingness keeps continues to unravel, if you will, but it comes from within. It comes from the extrasensory that we all can experience. It's our birthright. It's
Yeah.
so I've just honed my skills, and it's something that now I'm super passionate about helping other people hone their skills, because for most people, not for all, but for most people, it's happening whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it needs to be talked about.
Well, and to your point too, and I like how, so going back to what you said too, how a lot of this stuff is kind of referred to now as like alternative medicine, where it's really been it's like primary
Mhm.
medicine.
Yeah.
It's been there this whole time. Somehow it kind of got labeled as alternative. But it really is, it's been around for thousands of years, right?
Mhm.
And like you said, whether I want it to or not, it's there. You know,
Yes,
this energy, this knowing, this channeling, it's there, right?
it is. It's our birthright. It is something that humans have the capacity to do. Um, a lot of people are sensing it, but they're just not quite sure what it means, because they're also living in experiences where there's indoctrination in religion, or, past experiences, how we're shaped by society, what the family is saying. I mean, it's the myriad of things that are seemingly obvious. It's our patterns and programming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think once we strip that, we can see it for what it is, and it's essentially just opening up our senses to something that isn't physically tangible, or I don't even want to say not backed by science, because I think we are beginning to understand the tools and how to quantify this,
Hmm. Hmm.
but that's coming. It's not something that we've had in our human experience in our lifetime, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you tell, so kind of going back to what you said too, so when you were mentioning, what a psychic is, and so
Yes.
maybe just kind of talking about maybe, what it is, but then what it isn't, for those people who might have like an idea of it, or
Mhm.
maybe a misconception perhaps, but yeah, what it is, but then maybe what it isn't.
So I actually pulled this definition from the web, or from the dictionary before the chat. So I'll read it.
Okay.
A psychic is a person who claims to use powers rooted in parapsychology, such as extrasensory perception, so ESP. So exactly what I was talking about earlier, empathing or highly sensitive perception. A psychic is a person who can identify information hidden from the normal senses, particularly involving telepathy or clairvoyance.
Mm.
Someone who performs acts that are apparently inexplainable by natural laws. So what does that mean exactly? To me, a psychic is someone who can tap in to connect with themselves and can receive intuitive guidance from their higher self, from God source, whatever higher power, from supportive spirit teams. A psychic is someone who can um, sense the unseen. So we're talking non-physical beings, beings who have soul energy that have incarnated into a different suit, meat suit, or physical form.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially into it. It's a very strong sense of inner knowing, we'll
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
intuition, or I mean, think about it. Let's give common examples of what psychic information might be. So, um, if you're driving in your car and you have your GPS on and you're ready to think about turning because the GPS is telling you to go right, but there's something telling you to go left
Yeah.
and you ignore it, but you should have gone right because yes, there was traffic, but there was actually an accident over here that hadn't been picked up by GPS yet.
Yeah.
Or an example of inner knowing or intuition or a strong sense of psychic knowing is knowing something before it happens. We
Mm-hmm.
have this sense of, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Or
Yeah.
an event happens and you're like, holy, I just had a dream about that.
Yeah.
Or experiences like, I could tell the baby was going to be a boy. I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything
Yeah.
that you can think of that you would say if just like you sense something before it happens, you see the crash before it happens, a few seconds. It's like this download that happens.
Totally. Or something that you have, in some ways too, it's like I've experienced this before. Or, like you said, just kind of that intuitive knowing that something is right or wrong, that, or you can just feel the energy,
Yes.
with something. Because a lot of people, like even myself included growing up, it was like, well, you're psychic, you can predict the future, that kind of thing, or what's going to happen and next year, that kind of stuff, or like all this kind of stuff. But it's really, like you said, that energetic tapping into something that you already know or that you can feel or you're receiving, right?
Exactly. And I think it's really important to discuss that when where we're moving, where humanity is moving, or the timeline that humanity could move into, is what some might, in the new age, if you will, is considered this like new earth or new earth paradigm or the coming of Christ or the age of Aquarius. These are different terms of like the next evolution of human consciousness. And in this space, if you are a healer or describe yourself as a healer or a healthcare worker or a space holder, you are essentially a person who can hold the space for someone to meet themselves where they're at. Psychics and healers can tap into the unseen, but it's a potential timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And because the planet has free will, it's really up to the individual person or the soul who's taking the human form to discern and to decide what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, with your session, you came in and it could have gone either way,
Yep.
but your soul, your human form, your mind, personality, your ego, your body, your spirit decided, I'm going to meet this experience and level up or
Mm-hmm.
raise my vibration and frequency so that I can experience what's being channeled or held in the container by my friend who's supporting and holding the space.
Yeah.
So, that being said, it's really an individual choice. Everybody has the ability within them to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It takes practice. Just like sports or going to yoga or doing your craft, whatever that passion might be, you have to practice it.
Yeah.
I've spent years practicing this. And so now I get to use it professionally. And part of it is my soul mission work. I came in for this reason to drop into earth to assist humanity in its evolution of consciousness. So maybe I had a leg up on some people, but also it's been a choice. And
Yeah.
I could also choose to not do this, and that would still be just fine.
Yeah. Well, and like you said too, because there are people who, you might hear them say things like, well, I was born with the gift, or I've always known I've had it, or, those kinds of things too. But like you said, anybody really can tap into their inner knowing and the energy, right?
Yes. Yes. And it is, anybody can tap in, and then you're going to get people who are like, well, I just can't do it. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, the belief that you can't do it is
Right.
actually preventing you from not. And I know that that's an annoying thing to say,
Hmm.
because there's times where you're just like, my mind is racing so hard, and it is training the mind to take a step back. It is allowing the spirit, or if the mind body connection, what we're talking about, the soul energy or the higher self or this quantum awareness,
Yeah.
to come through.
Hmm.
And it's almost like I keep going like this, but I find that the intuition comes from here,
Hmm.
or it comes from heart center or navel center. Um, it's I'm trying to describe it. It's like going within, and um how do you describe something so esoteric? How would you describe an intuition or an intuitive hit?
Right. Like, how do you describe that? Because what you're saying too is it's for me, it is about the ability to tap into it, but also being able to be open to receiving it.
Yes.
Yes. Right. And
Yes.
just like you said too, where it's like, well, I don't believe that, or that doesn't work for me, or I can't go there, or whatever the thing is. Like, I've told people too, when it comes to energetics and some of those other things, it's like, well, just like anything, if you don't believe it, you're not going to be open to receiving it, right?
Yes.
Or if you just like even therapy, okay, well, if you don't like being there, or you don't like the person, or you're not wanting to receive what they have to tell you, it's not going to work, right?
You're going to block yourself.
Right.
Yep. So I think anybody can be psychic if they choose to do it. They get to go through. They don't have to go through. They're choosing, they're desiring to go through the process that comes with opening up these extrasensory skills or gifts that we have. That process might not be easy. It might seem like it might be easy. It might demand some balancing,
Hmm.
and that might take years. And I think people forget, they forget they planted the seed, during a meditation once
Yeah.
in sound bowl healing, and all of a sudden this path is unraveling, and they're like, well, I'm not psychic, I can't do this. And it's like, well, you can. You're just
Yeah.
spend the money, go to a healer, go to someone who can hold space for you, continue to go to your acupuncture points, eat healthy, cry, shed, look at your outdated beliefs. you
Yeah. Yeah.
Go through the process and practice this awareness.
I love that. And can we just, I guess I don't know if I want to use the word normalize, but can we just debunk
Mhm.
that type of energy, people who might be, have opinions about this, or fearful, or that it's like a negative energy, or you're opening yourself up
Yeah.
to something negative, or something satanic, or something bad. It's energy, right? And so, yeah, how would you,
That's a big topic, right? And it
yeah,
could get very heated very quickly.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but let's talk about it.
yeah.
Um, First of all, I think let's talk about resonance
Mhm.
and what resonates with you. So to put a overarching theme on it, we're talking about probably religious beliefs that say being a psychic, having intuitive knowingness is against God, or is demonic, or is less than love, less than desirable. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
What would you say to that? I'm going to tell you to figure out your resonance. So what feels good and true for you? What feels pure?
Yeah.
What feels like love? I think at a base level, I mean, I think maybe even you and I have a difference in what we call God or source, or the higher power that is this pure consciousness. Um, and I think that my belief is that religions have been man-made in some sense. The tapping into the higher power, the belief or the love, or Christ consciousness, Jesus and God is, you're tapping into the healing power. You're tapping into the wholeness, into the oneness, into the goodness that it is. And then man comes in with an ego or with an approach of consciousness and tries to control it. So I think if we were to strip down all of the language and all of the theoretical beliefs in world religions, most of us would agree that it's coming to this higher power, how to be moral, how to be a good person. And there's different beliefs on how to get there.
Yeah.
So what do you say to someone who thinks the word psychic is not resonating? It's essentially not resonating with them. They are somewhat fearful of what that word has meant. And I would say, where is that coming from? Is it an energetic charge that you're picking up on the word? Is it something that has been indoctrinated or I keep continuing to say that word indoctrination, but really it's just a learning experience. If your parents have said that and their parents and generations before have said that, of course you're going to attach a belief system to a certain word. So going back to what does it make you feel in your body? Is it really how you're feeling, or is it what you are thinking and feeling? Are you
Sure.
feeling this, or are you feeling this?
Yeah. I love how you described it that way. And I love too that you mentioned really at the end of the day, this is about love and healing energy. And really you take it to a good place where it should be.
My intention is for the highest good of others or the highest good of humanity. So when I do my work, I'm stepping in and acting as a channel or a bridge. And my intentions, I believe my intentions to be pure. I have an awareness of the voice of my ego and the voice of my human, my personality,
Yeah.
because I've attached to my soul energy. So I can say it over and over. It was my intention to do this. It's very much the intention of each individual person and the person that is engaging with the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has to do with resonance. The vibration and frequency like attracts like. So even if you have a seemingly bad experience, on some level, you have attracted this experience. If you have a breakup and you ultimately are feeling like that was the worst decision you've ever made, essentially, it could have been the best decision for you because you, at the place that you were at, attracted this person. You learned what you needed to learn. You experienced this experience with one another, and then you just shifted out of it. So that's resonance. What is good and true for you for your highest good?
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to discern your own resonance in this age because there are so many people who are coming online or coming into their own gifts and their own healing modalities and wanting to bring this new way of being to the planet. And so there's a lot of people who are figuring it out. We're all still figuring it out, myself included. You work within your own resonance in your energy sphere, the vibration and frequency that you're operating at, and you figure it out. And then when you figure that out, you raise your frequency and your vibration and you figure that level out. And so people are being attracted to different levels based on where they're vibrating at.
Oh, I love.
So it is very important. It is very important to use and to exercise discernment. What is your resonance? Because that's essentially all we have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It totally does.
There are, I'm going to try to do it. Okay. So we talked about the satanic or demonic or lower, denser vibrational energies. That is indeed a real thing. Nobody's trying to say that is not real, but I would invite you to look at it in a different way. And that way being, think about lower or denser vibrations. So we have things like fear, grief, sadness, rage, anger, murder, these types of feelings or experiences. Do you want to pull up the chart?
Yeah.
Page 8.
So
I'm going to describe.
Yeah, so for anybody who's not
Yeah.
able to actually watch, this will be available later, but we're just pulling up a little chart here. So, okay,
Yep.
where do you want me to go, Jen?
page 8 or page 6, I believe. So this is a scale that describes elevating consciousness and human potential. So we have consciousness levels. So emotions, energy in motion. We have shame operating at a vibration or frequency or number, we'll call it, at 0 to 20, guilt 30, grief 75, fear 100, desire 125, anger 150, pride. We're moving up in frequency and vibration. Number 200, courage. 310, willingness. 350, acceptance. Love. 500, 540, joy. 600, peace. 700, enlightenment. So think about the energy in motion vibrating at a consciousness or a frequency and vibration. Joy is higher in frequency and vibration than guilt. We have joy at 540 and guilt at 30. So if you think about a soul energy is an energy that is separate from source God to experience physical form in a certain set of experiences or circumstances. So a soul chooses to become separate from source. It takes a human form and comes onto the planet. The human will experience these ranges of emotions in its form. Many other beings many other souls choose to take a different suit, right? They might choose to be reptilian or Pleiadian or Syrian or a different type of, those are extraterrestrial or non-physical being origins. They might choose to experience physical reality in a different suit, not human. And so there are non-physical beings who feed off of the emotions that humans experience. So if you are a human experiencing guilt, shame, grief, fear, and operating for most of your life in these frequencies, you are experiencing a lower or denser concentration of experience. It's not to say that the human who experiences guilt or grief or shame isn't also going to experience enlightenment, peace, and joy, because we will always experience the range of emotions in our human form. It is just where your baseline energy, it rests. What do you want to be experiencing most of the time? So when you're talking about, well, I feel very dark things when I go to, a space that it just feels like negative energy. Well, that's because there are people there who are essentially their resonance or their vibration and frequency is vibrating, is working, is living in these lower states of being. It's not good or bad. It just is.
Just is.
It just is. It's just an experience for a soul to have. And it is one stop in the scale of infinity and eternity. We are all just souls experiencing different sets of circumstances, and it will constantly evolve over time, space, and dimensions.
This is so fascinating because you think we say these things all the time, like it's just kind of part of like our language when we just refer to people as being like high vibe or being like low vibe. It truly, you're putting it into like context in terms of what it means to be high vibrational or like vibrating at a low frequency.
And let's be super clear on the fact of everybody, there's this thing going on. Maybe you've seen it. Let me back up. This is a scale that I didn't come up with. Dr. Hawkins, if you scroll down just a tad bit, there's books on this, that David R. Hawkins consciousness scale. There's many, many, many resources that you can dive into and learn about this stuff. So not claiming it, but remind me what we were talking about.
High vibrational people. We talk about this stuff all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. To be high vibe, you got to go through your stuff. I mean, we can't think that we're always going to be high vibe or super guru spiritual. I'm a person who's meditating in some mountain town and not interacting with humanity. It's a practice. you have to feel shame in order to understand enlightenment. These things are not good or bad. They are quite literally just experiences. Your soul has a body, it has a mind and a personality. You are experiencing a frequency of grief in your human form. And I think by knowing this, by understanding that we aren't these emotions, it will help us move through them faster. It
Mm.
will help us experience these experiences in a way that it doesn't get clogged in our bodies and stuck. And we're able to experience and move through them and continue to create, to continue to move forward and essentially co-create with our soul what we want to experience.
Oh, I love that so much, Jen. Would you agree to that? Because I'm going to use myself as an example and people that I've worked with and that I've talked to. So, like you said, when we start to, because some of us live like in the, depending on our experiences and stuff, you know, we could have, you know, come from things, right, that make us feel some kind of way or live a certain way. But when you start to do like the, you know, kind of referred to as starting to do the work, like you start to do the inner work, you start to, you know, be a little, you start to bring self-awareness, you start to be more aware. And as you do that, I've described it in myself as somebody who has felt more open. Like people will just describe themselves as being more open. And I think that's because I have allowed myself to receive. Do you see what I'm saying? And so like when we have this feeling of like this just sense of like, I just feel more open to receiving, or I just feel just more aware as we do this inner work. Is this kind of like, would you agree that this is kind of what's really happening here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great example. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of my work through body work and energy healing is helping people process stuck emotions and things that are not fully processed in our bodies. So think about, for example, like I got third grade, I was super self-conscious because I was such a sensitive empath. For me. I just wish to give my little self a big hug, but roller skating class. I was so nervous about roller skating. And about a year ago, last winter, I was receiving structural integration and rolfing. So working with the fascial system, the tissue that surrounds your muscles. So opening the fascia, opening is not the correct term, but getting body work. I was getting
Yeah.
body work, and this feeling, this unprocessed experience of feeling all these things and nervousness and anxiousness about doing roller skating class in elementary school was still living in my body.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was in a space of, okay, I'm going to go in and see without judging what I'm holding on to that doesn't serve me. And it's like, oh, we're going to let that go. We're going to use body work and energy healing techniques to see the energy, see what it looks like. What does it feel like? Does it have a movement? Does it have a color? What is this fear, anxiety of roller skating look like?
Yeah.
And then you release it from your physical form, from the cells, the molecules, the auric field. And and that's an example of processing through an experience. So on some level, when we're becoming aware of how to do the inner work, what does that exactly mean? It means staying present, but going back and kind of cleaning up your physical and energetic forms.
Mm-hmm.
It also has to do with the present moment, but we can get into that later. But a good way to become psychic or to hone your skills or to become more intuitive or empathic would be to do the cleanup work, is feel what's in your body
Mm-hmm.
and open your senses up to getting rid of that doesn't serve you.
Yeah. And I love that we're having this conversation too, because this speaks to some of the things that I work with people that I talk to, is that a lot of this is so subconscious. Like on the conscious level, we are sad, we're shameful, we're having all these bad experiences, but underneath it all, what's actually happening is it's being pulled from or experienced from emotions that are still living within us. They're in our tissues, right? But on the surface, it feels one way and it shows up and manifests in one way, which we can kind of look at as our experience, like our conscious experience, but it's really this, it's happening at such a deeper level, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And I think right now a lot of people are turning to medicines, plant medicines, ayahuasca ceremonies, mushroom ceremonies, ketamine's super popular combo. We're using external medicines to access this esoteric or almost subconscious awareness. And those are great tools and can serve to get us to a point where we're doing the work to clear all of these lower, denser vibrations still living within us. But at some point, you get to know these truths and live these truths without using external medicine.
Mm-hmm.
They're teachers. They're here to take down the mind, personality, ego parts of the human and just kind of give them some rest or put them in the back seat and allow the unseen, the soul energy, the subconscious to take the driver's seat. And I say subconscious, this is me nitpicking. I believe subconscious is different than soul energy.
Mm.
I believe that the subconscious is a human experience and the soul energy exists outside of the human experience. We can get into that later.
I
I'm
just
trying to correct myself.
No, I love that. And but I love too, as you were saying that, you kind of gave me this like sense of renewed hope in the sense that it doesn't have to be one way. Like meaning you can release these things. There are ways that you can go in, and it's not who you are. You are not a bad person. You are not a person, you're not a shameful person, or angry person. These are just things that we can move through, right?
You have just experienced shame or grief or fear in your experience at the time that you're in. That's it. You're experiencing it and it's likely unprocessed. So it's still weighing you down, keeping you in a lower or denser vibrational state.
Yeah. Such a beautiful way to describe it. And can we pivot into sort of the work that you do then with the soul retrieval? So tell me a little bit about what that would look like if somebody was like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So I typically work with two groups of people. People who are, one, feeling the resonance or the pull towards the work that I offer or the space that I hold, we'll say. Some of those people are just becoming aware of the fact that energy is a thing, or they're starting to sense that they might have an awareness that their liver is talking to them or their body is aching. So they're like, I want to fix this, but I also realize that maybe there's something to this alternative medicine or holistic health.
Yeah.
I also work with people who have been doing the work or have people who are awake, will say, and I don't mean that in a sense of wokeness. I mean it in a sense of how you described being open in a sense. So I think we can understand that.
Yeah.
People who are ready to do an expansion in consciousness, people who want to explore their consciousness and their ability to access non-physical reality. And so with people who are ready, and this is not for everyone. And I think it's very important to make that disclaimer is, in my experience with this work, you're either ready for it or you're not. It's either a yes or a no. There's no gray area with this. You might not understand it logically. The mind probably won't understand it, but it will be an intuition or a straight up knowingness of, yes, this is for me. I don't know why, but I know that I need this.
Yeah.
And, some of my friends and family have kind of pushed me on that, and I don't know what to say. It is just one of those things where if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that is just fine.
Yeah.
But with the soul retrieval, so to back up a little bit, the soul energy is this limitless, ageless, infinite beingness. It is an energy that is often very hard to describe in words. And, giving you my background, being highly intuitive and super sensitive my whole life, I didn't know the vibration and the frequency of my soul energy until I was about 30 years old. I'm 35. So I believe that many people on the planet, humans, aren't consciously aware of what the soul energy actually is. We're very familiar with our mind and our ruminating thoughts or our logic, the voice of the logic that kicks in, the voice of the ego. We're becoming more aware of what that is. The ego existing to be right. So if you had an experience that didn't work out smoothly for you, the ego kicks in and the logic kicks in and says, don't do that again, right?
Yeah.
It's for safety. It's not going away. People talk about having dark nights of the soul or egos dissolving, and it's like, that's beautiful to learn the voice of the ego, but the ego will always exist.
Not going
We're just
anywhere.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have the mind, the ego, and the personality, what makes us us in human form, and that's fun. Those are human parts. We also have a body, your vehicle to experience those three parts, and for the soul to experience what it does on this planet. We don't know the soul energy, partly because humans have had amnesia. When they drop into human form, it's by design. It's part of the playing field or the rules of the planet Earth. Part of the game of life is to wake up or to remember where we came from in a soul level. So we're wiped of our knowingness because on some level, our soul wanted to have this experience and play this particular game. Because of, this is going to be, maybe I'm just going to say it, Earth's soul energy has shifted in frequency and vibration. It is shifting, meaning you might have heard the term 3D or 5D consciousness. Earth's shifting into a fifth dimensional reality, meaning her soul is expanding. She's leveling up. Our human form has been operating at a frequency that allows us to live on Earth in a third dimensional playing field. Because the Earth is leveling up, our human form has to level up to be able to survive or to experience physical reality on the planet. And so our bodies are changing. We are moving from a carbon-based structure to a more crystalline structure, Christ-like, crystalline or light body. We're just changing the dynamics and the experiment, if you will, while we're incarnating in the same physical form. So when we were born, the Earth was at a different playing field than it is now. And throughout that time, that inner work, that purging and that letting go of the lower, denser vibrational consciousnesses that are living within us have cleared. So we're able to be lighter in vibration and frequency. So that's happening. And that's why it's like, don't try so hard to be a psychic. Just do your inner work and the stuff's going to come, because your body is shifting and your soul signed up for this experience. So because of the way that the Earth is, because the amnesia is being lifted from the human experience, humans, you and I, have more ability or an easier ability to tap into. Are you there? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yep.
Humans have an ability to tap into and access this knowingness or higher consciousness. And one of the ways to get there, there's tons of ways to do it. There isn't a right or wrong way. My way of offering this is for people who are ready to connect with that unique soul energy. So if you were to put your hand into a bag and feel around, and you had, you know, your partner's soul, your mom's soul, your best friend's soul, and your soul, could you dip your hand in the bag? Could you put your hand in there and pull out your unique soul energy? Would you be able to do that? Just by feeling, just by intuiting?
I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of us know who we are.
Yeah.
Some people don't know that. you might experience the essence of you or this soul energy in states of orgasm or in states of utter calmness and like comfort. Or where else would you say you've experienced this inner bliss, this esoteric beingness?
Gosh, I think you described them, or yeah, you just kind of like in those what you described. Yeah,
Yep. It's hard to put into
it's hard
words,
to
but
put into words. Yeah.
it's something that we've had glimpses of. But the conscious mind needs to be aware of it. The mind needs to be aware of it, the ego, the personality, and the body. Those parts of us have been working as co-creators with the soul. But when you consciously connect to the soul energy and you learn and you feel if it has a color, if it has a vibration, a movement, what its mission is, um, how to sense it and feel it in comparison to others, it unlocks a new level of mindfulness and awareness. It unlocks a new body, mind, spirit connection.
Mm.
So we do that. We connect you with the soul energy. And because the soul energy is this unlimited creator beingness, it can traverse time, space, dimensions. It can go anywhere effortlessly. This is tapping into that innerness and using it to journey. So there's this idea of soul loss. Soul loss, this is mostly popular. You might hear this in like shamanic areas, or a shaman would journey with someone to retrieve a piece of soul energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way that the earth is now, we can do this on our own. We don't need a shaman or a guru or someone or a medicine woman or man to do this for us. We can access this ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the soul energy might experience soul loss throughout all of its incarnations in any physical form. Meaning, if your soul chose to be a rock on a different planet in a different space-time continuum, that's still a soul experience.
Mm-hmm.
If it chose to be a human in a time on this planet, the soul energy might experience a trauma, a hardship, worship, love. And in the soul's evolution, the soul has fragmented itself. So someone might come in and instead of doing a heart-centered or auric energy exchange, they exchange soul energies.
Mm.
So one person might take the life or soul fragment of another and harbor it as their own. So now this person's soul has a piece of this other soul, and now this soul has a conglomerate of energy. It's not authentic or sovereign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that has happened. We might give pieces of our soul to a god or to a deity that we've worshipped in another lifetime or in another place in space. And so you think of it like a Swiss cheese piece that has holes in it, or a puzzle that has missing pieces of the original soul energy that dropped from source itself to
Yeah.
experience reality.
Yeah.
That's the idea of soul loss. So let's bring that into terms that people can understand. I recently worked with a client who loved her pet, and the pet died in a very traumatic way.
Mm-hmm.
And her being an empathetic person wanted to alleviate the pain of the pet and give the pet something to transition into the afterlife. Essentially, what she did unknowingly was break off a piece of her soul and offer it, and left it at the death site.
Mm.
So she comes to me 2 months later and she's like, I'm grieving, and that's normal to grieve the loss of something you love. But she's like, I feel like something's missing within me, and it's deeper than just the sadness of a pet.
Yeah.
So we start to do the energy healing session, and she's, breathing and tapping in and going within. And it turns out she had quite literally taken a piece of soul, not heart-centered or energetic exchange, and given it or offered it to console the experience. So she went back in the time-space continuum, reclaimed her piece, and reintegrated it into her field. And she walks out of there and she's like, I'm doing great. Thank
Wow.
you. You know, so that's an example of how it happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, on different planets and in different bodies, I can't speak to how it goes down there because I can't remember yet like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from an energetic perspective, that's something that's happening. So, to bring it back to what is a soul retrieval, many people are walking around with this experience or feeling that something isn't right. They don't know what it is, what's missing. They don't know how to move through it. There's something that's like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Well, it's likely your soul is fragmented. The soul has taken itself apart. So we connect you to the amount of soul that you've incarnated with, and then use the soul to journey to go up or to go out and collect its missing pieces. We integrate all of that, and then you have an awareness in your human form of the soul energy field that you can tap into. It's not saying you're going to become an astrophysicist overnight. It's saying that you have more tools in your intuitive and psychic senses where you could then essentially tap in for yourself, access the higher power. If you wanted to do a past life regression and see what you played with, if you can't remember in your human form, you just do it yourself.
Yeah.
You just go within and begin to scan your body and your auric fields, and you can see, oh, you know, my auric field over here, I went to this super busy place, something got in it. I'm going to just repattern the field, repattern my own auric field. And now I'm feeling balanced and more aligned, and I can take on my day. It's like we know how to brush our teeth. We know how to eat healthy. We know how to exercise. We know not to consume, you know, things that are carcinogens.
Yeah.
We're just now learning that, oh, there's an unseen part to us.
Yeah.
The soul retrieval helps us see beyond the five senses.
It's so fascinating. I might be sidebarring here,
Yeah.
but is there any sort of relationship to that and what we all know to be kind of referring to people as like a soulmate? Like when you feel like you found your soulmate or that person that you just connect with. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is there like connections with it? You know, like friends or relationships or whatever. It's like I just feel like this person is my soulmate. You know, or maybe
Yeah.
that's just something that's more of a
Nope. So these are terms, twin flame, soulmate. These are all terms that are very common right now. They're being
okay.
thrown around. And I think there's a really big misconception about them. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
The soul energy, if you think about source itself and this field, this beingness, when source itself wishes to experience, it drops or births a soul. Just follow me here. I'm just going
Yep.
to try to
Yep.
explain this.
Yeah. I'm following you. I'm following.
We're going to think of a soul like a circle or a grape. We're going to say one soul is one grape. There are many, many different souls choose to have a soul family. So think of a bunch of grapes on a vine.
Yeah.
Okay, your soul is a grape, and then you have a soul family, which is the grape vine, the big bushel of grapes. These groups of souls tend to incarnate in physical reality at the same time or in a lifetime, you know, whether it's your mom or, you know, your great niece, you know, over time. But there's certain players or souls that choose to drop into a form so that they can play out certain sets of experiences for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, um, your mom might have been your daughter in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where karmic debt begins to come in. It's like if in a past life or in a different reality you experienced this, you might want to experience the opposite. So you're going to drop into different characters and set up a timeline that will allow the soul to experience the opposite of what you did in the previous incarnation.
Got it.
So when people think of soulmate, they're sensing this, I know you from somewhere. We've had past lives together.
Yeah.
Probably, Yes, you know their frequency and vibration. It feels so familiar to you
Yes, yes.
because you have. It's part of your soul family. Many people think their soulmates are their life partners or
Right.
their best friends. And that's kind of an interesting, I think there's some language around it that might be a little bit of a romanticized
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
feeling. It could very well be true, but oftentimes our our greatest and most heartfelt life experiences aren't necessarily soulmates. They're
Sure.
just players that have said, we're going to get through this debt, this karmic experience together, and you're going to feel such a strong pull energetically to each other that you can't deny it.
Oh, I love that way of explaining it. Okay. I had to bring that up because,
Yeah.
in the spirit of soul, families and soulmates and stuff like that. I love that description, or I love how you explain that.
And let's talk about twin flames real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
So a lot of people, especially I think people who are just learning about this stuff, their twin flame is their like, oh, I got to find my twin flame. Twin flames are some serious soul contracts. Think about the one grape of soul. Yeah, that is
Mhm.
essentially you. That soul splits. So, and takes two physical forms, takes two human forms, typically around the same span of life, might be a few years different. And when twin flames come together, it's like a supercharge because it essentially is the soul of you. And
Mhm.
they're oftentimes the greatest and most tumultuous mirrors for one another. Twin flames aren't always supposed to be romantic with each other.
Mhm.
Twin flames are here to do some serious, whatever the soul mission work is, they're going to level up one another to the point of oftentimes I can't be physically around you restraining order style.
Mhm.
And then they level up and then they'll come together again. It's this undeniable, I see myself in you.
Yeah.
And often it's so magnetic and so repulsive at the same time that they're not good romantic partners together.
Interesting.
But in the moment that they choose to be romantic, it's like coming home to yourself. So
Yeah.
there is some play in that, but it often doesn't last until they are leveled up to one another where they're able to do their soul mission work together. Am I making sense with that?
There's so much going through my head right now. Yes, total sense. I'm taking it to my own.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm going offline here for a second, just trying to, for my own life, but it makes total sense. And that's such a perfect explanation of it.
So
It's
a lot of people who
interesting.
have tough breakups,
Yeah.
right, are like, why this person, it's like it's probably not your twin flame. It's probably just someone who is so in your soul family
Hmm.
that is supposed to be connected to you. And going back to that resonance and where you're vibrating at is we call in people and experiences because we are wanting to experience a certain set of circumstances to
Yeah.
experience joy, peace, whatever it might be, like a
Mm.
goalpost of your life.
Yeah. 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 So when you do these soul retrievals, because I mean, this is some powerful stuff. I mean, this is big, big healing stuff. And I know they're pretty extensive, these sessions, right? These experiences. Is there ongoing support, or do you see people like for an extended period of time when you're going through this work, I guess?
Typically, I see people are drawn to me or to the space that I hold and they don't know why. And then we start by doing they're like, oh, I have a neck and your just website just I just don't know why, I just need to meet you. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I'll gauge where they're at in their level of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes people are not quick to say they're psychic or empathic or intuitive. They're like, I'm not, I wouldn't describe myself as that. And it's like, well, you've just checked off, 15 or 16 of my 20 points that would make you that, but
Yeah.
your belief system says that you're not that and you don't identify that, so that's okay. But then they go within, and when we're in a session and they're doing this breathing work and this sensing of their body, they're like moving and grooving through the quantum field, like, right there with me. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, great. Then I will tap in and explain. I will say, here's an experience you might choose to do. Here's what I can offer you. This is why I think that you're attracted to my work. Some people I've worked with for 2 years and they're dedicated to it. They know they need it and they come in once a week and we do body work or energy healing, and you have to integrate what you do. So it takes time. And, I haven't gotten people, they've gotten themselves to a point that they've dedicated themselves to doing this, and they put in the work and they spend, $200 a session once a week or whatever it is. And there's also people who think they want it, but don't want to put in the practice of it.
Yeah.
Or they forget. So it's very dependent on the person. And by that, I really mean it's dependent on whether the soul wants to experience this level of consciousness.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to where you're talking about like the need to be ready. Because like myself included, it's like I want to do the work, but then when it comes to doing the work, I don't know if I want to do the work. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know if because it's unfamiliar. And I think which is why we're having this conversation today. The more we can bring this to the forefront, the more we can have conversations about this, the more it's not as scary, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I love that I'm just looking at this visual that we still have up on the screen. And because you kind of mentioned it a little bit ago too, that being reminded that we are in and out of this scale. We're up and down this scale. Like you're not starting at 0 to 20 and the goal is to make yourself up to 700. Like we are
all of it.
And I think that's where sometimes, again, myself included, we get stuck where it's like, well, I have to do this work so that I can be at peace. You know what I mean? Or I have to do this work so that I can just be joyful. Where it's like you said, the ego doesn't go away. Like these things go away. We just learn how to dance with it. We learn how to write it. To move it, right?
You learn how to be at peace with being so in grief.
Yeah.
You learn how to be at peace being angry. And that's not easy.
No.
It doesn't feel good to feel these things. That's why we allow them to harbor in our bodies unknowingly, because nobody wants to feel guilt or shame. That's it's not fun.
Right.
But at the same time, when we don't feel that, feeling enlightenment, peace, and joy also feels foreign.
Right.
It feels hard to do that. It's hard to receive those. It's hard to be so peaceful. The body wants it. The mind and body will kick in and be like, I really know what it's like to operate in grief because I've done it for 15 years. I'm going to stay here because it's safe.
It's familiar.
It's familiar. A personal share, I've honed my skills in the spiritual world and my mind. I'm pretty good with how my mind is working. I had a disconnect from my body. And in order to integrate humanness and the mind, body, spirit connection, I planted seeds and I was like, help me level up. What do I need to do to level up? Well, you need to learn your body. Okay, well, I've been doing my absolute best to heal my digestive health. And on some level, on a soul level, I chose to experience a gut imbalance, a SIBO, to the point of I'm effing miserable. And I'm on a super strict diet and I'm malnourished because I can't get the nutrients because all these things are eating my nutrients from food. But through this process that is very hard, I am learning how to, one, stay in my body, stay present, and allowing that to be okay. Yeah. I'm getting comfortable being uncomfortable in my body, and it is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, and it's not fun. I'm not enjoying it, and the moment I start to enjoy it is when I'll heal.
Yes.
But I'm not there yet, and I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it, and I love that you keep, despite all of the things that you have achieved and all the things that you do, and you mentioned that you're still learning. I think we're all still learning. We're never going to fully arrive, if you will. And I love too that as we're having this conversation, it just brings me back to, that what I like to share or impart is that you as the person are doing the healing. We are those space holders. We're the facilitators. We're the passengers, right, along with this journey. But the people are I'm not healing anybody. They're healing themselves. I'm just providing that space, holding it, facilitating, whatever, insert the word. Right? So people are not broken is what I'm trying to say. Like they are the ones doing this work is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And to your point, people aren't broken. I think it needs to be said about soul retrieval and the soul loss. You're not broken if you have a fragmented piece of soul in a tomb in Egypt that dates back in a different time space dimension. You are just experiencing a reality with a soul field that isn't whole. That's not good or bad. Just like shame is not any better than enlightenment, it's just a different set of circumstances.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I was thinking about just an experience, my own personal experience that I had with you, and you were talking about fragmented souls, and it's making sense to me. So I'm kind of and partly thinking about my own experience as we're having this conversation. It's just fascinating. But I think it's just what I love about what we're doing here is we're taking something for a lot of people that is scary, taboo, again, insert word, but making it safe, making it loving, what it really is, right?
What it really is getting to know yourself in varying degrees.
Yeah.
It's and that can also be scary. It's going within and knowing that you are your own spiritual guru, you are your own shaman, you are your own connection to all that is, to God, to Christ, whatever you believe in. It is just learning yourself and exploring a playing field. It goes on. And some people don't believe that. Some people don't believe in incarnation and, all the things that I might be talking about. But in my lifetime, this is what I'm playing in. I am choosing to play in this reality and experience. And maybe in the next lifetime, I won't. Maybe my soul will choose to be, a villain, so to speak, for someone who wishes to experience what I'm experiencing. So I might come in and trigger the heck out of them in every circumstance so that they level up.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about that. I love that you brought that up too, because what we talk about is, those triggers or those feelings are really that opportunity to pull something through that wants to be seen or pull something through that needs to be healed, kind of a gateway, if you will.
Yes.
And I find myself too, I just want to just say this, is that as I'm again looking at this chart where I found myself being more open, or that point where I got more open, I was treading this acceptance, willingness, neutrality. So in other words, I was willing to receive it, neutral in the sense that I wasn't letting like a bias show through. I was allowing it to just be. I made myself neutral, I guess you could say, and then this acceptance of what is. If that's making sense, I'm just kind of spitballing as I'm looking at this, but this is where I started to really feel, as I'm doing the work, that point where I was like, oh, I just feel more open now to all of this. I don't know.
Would you say that you felt almost lighter?
That you took the words right out of my mouth. That was literally what I was going to say. It felt lighter, like as if this energy, this heavy weighted energy, literally moved through and out in some ways.
And would you say that you still experience the ups and downs of humanity?
100%.
Is it easier to navigate those because you are lighter?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you bring that up too, because it's a reminder to myself that this is not a ladder we climb. I mean, this is a spectrum we move up and down, right? And That the good days are, the bad days are, they're there, you know, the bad emotions are there, the things they're there. But to your point, yes, as I become more open, as I become more knowledgeable and more aware, self-aware, it's much, much more easy to move through those things.
And moving through them, meaning just experiencing them and being what it is without judgment or
Yeah.
it's like when and this is hard for me to do too, and I'm sure it's hard for you. It's like when I feel anger or when I feel like I'm messy or when I have to have a bad day where I'm like, I need a shutdown day. I have to watch Netflix or I can't even watch TV. I just have to tune out everything.
Mm-hmm.
My human, I don't like that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that. I don't like being in a state of refining or resting,
Yeah.
and I fight it. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? It takes longer and it
Mm-hmm.
shows up. If I were to just accept that you need 24 hours of rest and don't judge yourself and tell your mind to stop thinking of all the tasks that you should be doing,
Yeah.
you would you would get your rest and you would have more productivity, peak performance,
Yeah.
synchronicity and extraordinary outcomes because you would have given yourself what you needed at the time that you needed it.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Say it louder. You know, because, oh, the ego is such a bitch, isn't she?
Yes. And I think there's also in the spiritual world, in the metaphysical world, I'm going through this where I feel like sometimes I'm not doing enough in the spiritual world to get this message across, or I'm not seeing as many clients. I'm not doing enough per week to do my soul mission work. And that's also something that is a lower, denser belief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working through that. I still feel like I could reach more people but guess what? When I really sit back, I'm tapped into the quantum field sometimes for 5, 6 hours a day. My human form needs rest.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it's something that I work through too. And my mom reminds me, she's like, girl, you're doing enough. And I'm like, no. Well, okay. That's why you're not getting more clients is because you believe you're not doing enough.
Yeah. 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 Right. Again, we all go through it no matter what. We're all human, right?
Yeah.
So,
We're
it,
learning how to be humans in a different way. And
right,
it's we're not going to escape humanity.
right, right. But again, here we are again having this conversation to bring this to attention, to make this common, make this normal, make this safe.
And
Have,
sometimes too, sometimes doing the wrong thing is a form of medicine. And by wrong thing, I mean, if you need to smoke a cigarette to chill out, do it.
yeah,
Like this idea that everything has to be perfect is an untruth.
yeah,
Like there can be I don't recommend drinking or taking external substances because it opens up your auric field, but I'm finding that a glass or two of wine sometimes for me helps me be more human
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
not so esoteric. And
mm-hmm,
it allows me to enjoy other beings, but there's a limit. If I go over,
sure,
I'm very much aware of my auric field when I'm choosing to consume. I have learned not to overindulge because I can sense and see when non-physical beings come in and attach and eat my light
yep,
because of the fact that I'm opening myself up to that. So what I'm saying is play with it. Don't
yeah,
it's like the achievement can just be transferred over to the spirituality realm, and it's like do what makes you feel good.
yeah, yeah.
Follow your joy, and your psychic gifts are going to come through.
And you kind of really just answered my next question, which was, ultimately at the end of the day, so if there's somebody listening or watching that is interested or that is curious to begin doing this work, what would be something you would advise them on, or to, wisdom to impart to get them to take that next step? And you kind of answered it with what you just said, right?
Well, I would say if you're saying this is cool, but I don't know where to begin because there's so many modalities, how do I know who to work with? this practitioner says they do this, but this is a different word. This person's cheaper.
Yeah.
What I would say is drop into your navel center, drop into your heart, put your hands here and here, close your eyes and feel, feel. Don't think, feel which one feels less constricted, more expansive to you.
Mm.
Do you feel like joy? Do you feel open and light, or do you feel any bit of contraction or self-doubt? And don't be afraid to play. With respect to finding a practitioner that is protecting the space, meaning find one logically who knows what they're doing. When you're working in the unseen realm, there's a lot of unseen things, and we do want to make it very clear that you need protection in the space. Because there are beings who want to feed off of fear and shame and apathy and things like that. But just start playing. You're going to be directed or guided toward where you should be. Meaning, if there's a pull to stop into a coffee shop and you're like, I got to get home, but I feel so strongly I have to go there, go there. Because there might be a display board or like a flyer for an event that you should perhaps be aligned with, or you might overhear a conversation or see something on a coffee shop TV that gets you your answers. So set the intention. What do you want to do? And then get out of your own way. Meaning the answers are going to come from everywhere. One example is, well, I don't have enough money to do this healing work. I don't want to pay for a service. Okay, one, if you don't have the money in your bank account, that's a very real thing. Set the intention and now allow it to come through. You're going to get a rebate coupon. You're going to get a discount on something. Someone's going to gift you something. You might get an opportunity to work more. Something will shift because you, the master creator that you are, intended to do something. You now just follow the breadcrumbs and allow it to come. If you want to set a time on it, like I need this modality by the end of the month. Okay, that gives your higher self, your soul, your spirit team 4 weeks in the physical world to set up circumstances for you to receive the money to get what you needed.
Yeah.
You have to get out of your own way and trust the resonance of where you're being guided.
Yeah. Yes. 1,000,000%.
It's hard to do, but it can be really easy. And once you get it, I don't know why you'd go back to the logical way.
Totally. And you mentioned it too. It's like it takes practice. We're not just gonna like listen to something and be ready, or it takes, which is why we are here to support that journey, to support that experience, right?
Yes.
To hold that space.
And a lot of it too is getting making up a system with yourself, with your mind, your body, your spirit, and the parts of those, and also the spirit teams that support you. And whether you believe that, I believe that to be fact. They're here to help and assist you on your journey, and they communicate with you. They want to communicate with you. So a session with me or with another space holder could be getting you to, okay, we're going to feel what yes feels like in your body. We're going to feel what no feels like. We're going to set up a certain set of parameters, a baseline, so that you can begin to communicate with yourself and with the teams that are supporting you.
Yeah.
Like you have just as much power as these non-physical beings do because you are them. You're just taking a human form.
Yeah.
Am I making sense with that?
Yeah, totally. Because part of me also thinks too, because it goes in line with, when you follow the nudge, when you follow your intuition, you read the signs, that you're going to, like you said, I'm going to get the discounts, I'm going to get the sale. There's going to be things that will happen that will tell you that you need to, and you trust it, right?
Yes.
Because there's also going to be that time where then you can say, well, I made this commitment or I made this investment and then my car broke down. So maybe it's somebody telling me that I shouldn't do it. Because then what I'm saying is then the ego can come in too and create fear and regret and, question things too. And so it's coming back to that I trusted yes, I trusted, you know what I'm saying? That
And
commitment.
and the car breaking down is a great example, because what happens if the car breaks down and then you get some sort of insurance money or something? Like, everything happens because you're intending it to. So the car breaking down might seem like the worst thing in the world, but it could actually be guiding you to the set of circumstances that it's actually going to get you your answers.
Right. Yeah, I had to learn that. Or did I say the hard way, because it was a beautiful thing, but like I did not think things that way, right? Just a couple of years ago. Like I was just like, well, I made a mistake. My car broke down. Now I don't have the money, and all that kind of, but it's like just trusting that this is what it's supposed to be,
What happened?
I when I made like a large investment, that I really felt intuitively called to do for my own self-development, like I literally had a car breakdown. And
Uh-huh.
so, and then I was just like, oh, this is a sign that it was a bad thing. But it ended up being not. Like it was the ego taking over to say, hey, you made the bad decision, you're not going to have all this, this is shame on you, kind of a thing. But it turned out to be lesson, I guess you could say, or just a practice
Uh-huh.
to overcome it, I guess you could say. It was an obstacle that I think was thrown in my way to build evidence that I can jump over it. Does that make sense? Am I
Absolutely.
articulating that right? Okay.
You are. And, I think the ego kicks in and says, we're going to end up on the streets. We're going to end up bankrupt. This money's never going to come back. And it's like, that might be an experience that was lived in the past.
Right.
But when you stay present and embodied and tapped in, you're going to land sweetly.
Yeah. And you can use this in any facet of your life too, right? This is just one example of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But boy, doing this work, it's really incredible stuff. Like it's really, really powerful stuff. And again, as somebody who has worked with you years ago and has been stayed in contact and has had some conversations with you, like it was such a pivotal thing for me to experience that. And I don't think by chance, I think on purpose, that this was my experience with you, or my session with you, or you and I connecting for the very first time was in line when I was literally across the street getting ready to go into that appointment, starting this journey with my coaching. And so, you know what I'm saying? And so it was all related, I feel. And
Yeah.
that experience with you was just another sign, an opening of sorts to say like, hey, I'm on the right path. I'm going in the right direction.
Very synchronistic. And
Mm-hmm.
you called it in. Your intentions to begin your career in nurse life coaching and with sisterhood, right? I mean, it's all forming. You just attract what you need to get you to the next step.
I can't tell you how grateful I am for, well, you as a friend, that we've been able to do this work together, but then just the work that you do,
Yeah.
for the world and for people around you. And if anybody is, wanting to do this with you, or find you, or ask you, or learn more about the work that you do, where can they do that? Like how
Yeah.
can I mean, I know how to find you, but like how can anybody else find you?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you for the opportunity to come on here and talk with you too. I have a website, lightwithinbodywork.com. I'm sure we can link that or put that on
Yep.
there. Shoot me a text, send me an email. Let's schedule a consultation call. Like, let's keep it really simple. Um, the sessions they're gonna become what they are going to become. So I would say be less concerned about whether you're picking the right modality, and just, if you're feeling called, let's set up a time. You're going to pick 60 or 90 minutes and we're just going to flow. And you're going to get what you need. And I'm going to bring my gifts. I'm going to bring my experience in multiple modalities, and we're going to see where you're at. And don't make it harder than it needs to be. Just, there's a book now button, or schedule, shoot me a text. We'll get on a phone call.
I love it. I love it. And I'm just seeing here too, if there was any, yeah, people, I want them to experience this. You know, I want them to experience you, and you're a gift. You are a gift, Jen, and I'm so, so lucky to have you in my circle and just to be able to share this gift with everybody else too. And so thank you for being here and doing this with me. I'm super, super grateful to you.
I'm excited. It's a stepping stone for me too. So thank you for holding space.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I'm going to, if anybody is interested in getting a hold of Jen, please do. I'm going to stop it here, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.